Get social with us. Follow us on Instagram at Goodtaste TV. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Good Taste for the Soul. I'm Tanji Patton. Are you eating enough vegetables? Well, if we're honest, the answer for most of us probably is not really. I know I'm guilty of that. I love them. I truly do, but I guarantee you I'm not getting 4, 5, 6 helpings a day, whatever the recommended amount is. So today we're going to talk to a physician who's also an avid gardener, and he works ferociously to get the folks he works with, clients and patients and whatnot, involved in thinking more about vegetables and working them into his diet. He's written a book called Veggie Smarts. It's almost like an encyclopedia of the veggie world. You can tell he has a very technical mind because there's a ton of details, and he'll entice you to try some vegetable groups you might not have thought of before because you didn't realize just how good for you they really were. In any event, I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I enjoyed meeting Dr. Compton. So, Dr. Compton, I am excited to talk to you. And do you want me to call you Michael, Dr. Compton? What are you more
Sure,
comfortable with?
Michael is just fine.
Okay, great. So, you're all about veggies, right?
I am. I'm a doctor and a farmer, and I'm all about veggies. And nowadays, I'm all about eating veggies too.
I love that. I think in the book, you refer to yourself as a veggie nerd.
Yes, a veggie nerd, an unapologetic vegetable snob, and a few other terms.
I love it. How did you get so immersed in vegetables? Because I think that's a fair word to use, having read your book.
Yes. Well, I grew up on a dairy farm in southwestern Virginia, but I always really liked the gardens even more than the Holsteins. And I have two green thumbs that I think were passed down from my granny.
Lucky you.
And yes, and so I love growing plants and vegetables and flowers. And a few years ago, I set out on an adventure of building a small organic certified vegetable farm. So to grow veggies for my customers at the farmers market and for the
Wow.
CSA membership, I had to really get to know a lot of vegetables.
You're not kidding. How many acres are you farming? If you're taking produce to a farmer's market, you got some big time stuff going on.
Believe it or not, only 1 acre.
Really?
It's amazing how much produce can come from 1 acre. Now,
Oh.
it's a small farm, it's a compact farm, so
Mm-hmm.
everything that we grow is intensively planted, but it's enough to load up, a van full of produce a couple of times a week to go to the farmer's market.
Well, I love that. And you live in the Hudson Valley area, so you've got some beautiful gardening seasons there.
Yes, it's a relatively short season. Our first frost is around, I don't know, October 5th to October 8th. Our
Yeah.
last frost is around May 5th to May 8th. So it's a somewhat short growing season, but nonetheless, we can grow a lot of veggies and fruits in that time.
So what motivated you to write a book about veggies? Vegetables, veggies. I mean, it's not, how would I say this? I mean, it's a book that you can tell a technical mind wrote. You know a lot about the individual vegetable groups.
Yeah. So, I had to learn a lot as a farmer about vegetables. And so I wanted to share some of what I learned. I also, in recent years, have learned a lot about nutrition
Uh-huh.
as I became board certified in lifestyle medicine. And so I wanted to also pass along some of the things that I had learned about nutrition. And so the book brings together, some stories about building a farm, all of the successes, a few of the failures,
Yeah.
as well as a lot of nutrition facts about a lot of veggies.
Are you excited about, to me, there seems to be, it's probably the some of the administration's pushes with health. There seems to be a lot of interest between everyone. It kind of crosses all lines. The politics of stuff doesn't matter. We all care about our kids and our health, right?
I think a lot of people are really interested in diet right now and nutrition. We've learned so much about ultra processed food over the past few decades. And
Yeah.
we know that even though it's convenient, it's low cost, it's efficient, it's just not very healthy compared to whole foods like fruits and vegetables. And so I think a lot of people more and more are interested in eating healthy, learning about nutrition, exercising, physical activity, and living longer. People want to live longer and enjoy life.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a big movement. I forget what they call it, out in California in the Silicon Valley guys, that have all the money to spend on things like that. It's the defying death, right? Like living forever.
That's
Um,
right.
I
But
don't think
we
that's
can all do things regardless of how much income or wealth we have. We can all do things to improve our diet. And I really do think that eating a wide diversity of vegetables is
yeah.
a really good way to go about it.
Now, would you call yourself vegan or vegetarian?
Right now, I'm neither vegan nor vegetarian. I tend to be vegetarian for breakfast.
Yeah.
I'm often vegetarian for lunch, but I'm flexitarian or pescatarian at dinner. I do eat fish, and I'm not a vegan. Maybe I will be someday, but I did grow up on a dairy farm, and so I think drinking milk is part of my genes. But I do think that veganism and vegetarianism are very, very healthy. I'm close, but not quite there.
Well, the people you work with, do you advise them to grow their own food? Is this
I
part
I
of
th-
the
yes, Tanji, I think it's a great idea for everyone to grow some portion of our own food. It's the very healthiest food because it's super local, and
Mhm.
you feel so good about eating your own food, whether it's just a cherry tomato plant in a pot on the balcony or a small raised bed or a full garden in the backyard. I think it's a great idea for all of us to be growing, some portion of our own food.
I agree. It's the best psychological boost in the world for me personally to go out there and pick a tomato, or I've got green beans and
Yes.
okra going right now.
Yes.
It's fantastic. And also, I will say, you do in these days and times, you do save money when you can go outside and cut, dinner right out of the garden.
Sure, you definitely save money. You also get in a bit of exercise. Gardening
Yeah.
requires a lot of movement. It also requires a lot of planning and thinking ahead. And so it's just overall, it's a really good activity to get us out into nature, with the birds and the bees
Yes.
and, learning about growing some food and seeing what we're good at, seeing what we're not so good at so that
Yeah.
we know how to plan our garden next year.
I think it's a beautiful connector to our creator, right? There is something magical about that transformation of a little seed into an entire plant.
That's
Um,
right.
it's very
That's right.
special. I
Yeah.
agree.
I mean, think about a tiny, tiny cabbage seed that in just 3 or 4 months becomes a huge head of cabbage that you grew. It's the best tasting head of cabbage you'll ever eat.
You're right. I've tried cabbage before and I've not had much luck. We get hot here pretty quickly and cabbage can be
Yes.
a testy one. But I actually now I didn't get the big giant one that you probably get up in New York, but I got one that was about this big maybe. It was enough for my husband and I to cut it down the middle and do some fun things to it. And
Sure.
you're right. It was amazing. But it
Yes.
was that was like, I've done it once. Maybe next time it'll be that big.
Right, and it's a confidence boost, it really helps
Absolutely.
you feel good about what you've done.
Absolutely, and there is no denying the flavor, the taste. Anything that comes out
Yes,
of the garden tastes 10 times better than anything you're gonna buy, at a grocery store. It
that's
really
right.
makes a difference. Well, let's hone in a little bit on the vegetables because you have the medical background, you have a lot of scientific knowledge on this, and having been raised in the agricultural world, what is the vegetable group if you were to tell one of your patients or clients, someone you work with, what is the most important veggie group do you think that they should focus on? Is there one?
Yeah. Well, in Veggie Smarts, in my book, I go through 8 families of flowering plants that give us virtually all of our vegetables. Even though there are more than 400 families of flowering plants, it's just 8, and
Wow.
most of us don't even know what those 8 are, but some of them are definitely superfoods, I would call them. Others aren't necessarily superfoods, but nonetheless, they're very nutritious. But among the 8 families, if I could pick one as sort of a foundation, I think it would be the brassicas, which is the cabbage family. It's
Ah,
cabbage, collards, kale, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, watercress, arugula, on and on and on. It's a very large family,
Hmm.
but a very, very nutritious family. I would also say that the legumes are really, really nutritious. That's the beans, peas, and the dried beans.
Now, do
It's a really
lentils
good
fall into
source of
that? They do, don't
absolute
they?
yes, yes. Lentils are I think are really, very delicious and obviously very nutritious, packed with protein as well.
Okay, so the word say the word again for it.
The legumes.
Oh, legumes, yes, but you had the overall classification.
The other
Brassica?
family that I refer to are the brassicas. The
Brassicas, okay.
brassicas, yes.
The brassicas. Okay, so we and those are all good, and some most are, fairly easy to grow if you have a cooler climate, I guess, too.
Cooler climates, yes. And
What
then
is
there are 6 other families,
Mhm.
and so surely, if you want to grow a few veggies, across all these different families, you can find one that is well suited to your climate, to
Ah,
your
okay.
geography, yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to know because sometimes it's easy when you see one that likes cooler weather to write it off, but dig deeper. Your book digs deep into it, so they
It
could
does, yes.
get some
It tells you
information.
which families are sun-loving and heat-loving versus which, prefer, the cool temperatures of spring.
Well, in Texas, sun and heat are kind of our second names, you know?
So
That's
try growing some onions and garlic and shallots. They like the sun and the heat.
okay, okay, good to know. So we've got the brassicas, and then what's another group that you love to grow and you love to eat?
Sure, another family among the 8 are the quinopods. The quinopods. They're named that because many of their leaves are shaped like a goose's foot. That's what quinopod means, goose's foot. So
Whoa,
this is the goosefoot family of vegetables, and it includes beets,
yeah,
Swiss chard, and spinach. And they're all superfoods. They're very, very nutritious. It also includes a couple of weeds in the garden that most people just pull and throw away, but they're super nutritious weeds, called lamb's quarters
yeah.
and pigweed. So when I have lamb's quarters and pigweed growing in the garden, I yes, pull the weeds and I take them straight to the kitchen.
Really? We think of pig's weed. I think that's the one out here that's a big allergy. It gets in the pollen, gets in the air at certain times of the year. I
Once
never
it
knew you could
flowers,
eat it.
yeah. Yeah, once it flowers, it produces pollen, but the pigweed that you eat, you would harvest it early when it's young, tender leaves that taste a little bit like spinach.
How about that? On the spinach note, I have a personal question on that. I have grown it and I've harvested some, but that spinach seems so susceptible to the bugs. Um, have you had
Yeah,
any luck with keeping things off your spinach? Because that's been a challenge for me.
so as I detail in Veggie Smarts, I'm pretty successful at growing every vegetable you can imagine except one, and that's spinach.
Oh,
Year after year after year, I've had troubles, and so it's quite embarrassing as a farmer who grows all these vegetables for the farmer's market to not be able to grow spinach. So I have to put on a low brim hat and dark sunglasses and walk into the grocery store and buy my spinach.
oh, that makes me feel so much better. You have no idea because that is one thing I have wrestled with over and over. And I garden organically, but I will use that soap suds. What's the name? I don't know,
Yeah,
soapicide or
the
whatever it's called,
yeah,
or
the
and
soap.
sometimes neem. But
Yeah,
I don't like to do much of that. And the spinach, I'll go out there, and I mean, something's just feasted on it overnight. It's very
it's
frustrating.
difficult. It is difficult.
Yeah,
It's a
it's a tough
finicky
one.
plant compared to so many other leafy greens that are really, really easy to grow.
Yeah, exactly.
So someday I'll grow spinach.
Well, someday I'd love to, but I may have to move to a cooler climate. I just haven't had
Yes,
much luck with it here
yes.
at all. What about cooking methods? Because you hear different things when you're doing vegetables, and I assume you eat a lot of them. Um, do you have a preferred method of preparing because of the nutritional value you get from it?
Um, Not necessarily for the nutritional value, but just for the ease.
Uh huh.
I do a lot of sautéing. I
Yeah.
use a small amount of olive oil and I saute my veggie, just for a few minutes so that it's still a little bit, crunchy, but still cooked. I do snow peas, green beans, lots of different types of greens, my spinach, I do a lot of sautéing. It's very, quick and
Mhm.
easy. But, I would also recommend steaming, vegetables, and, of course, some vegetables are really best, done roasted. So if you think winter squash, root vegetables like carrots and beets and potatoes, they're just so good
Yeah.
roasted.
I have a question because beets is one of your top nutritional things. That's another one I've had trouble growing. I mean, it looks great above the ground, but I, I I guess I haven't mastered that art of when to go, and pull it up because nothing's there really. And it just doesn't seem to be working on my end.
Yeah, beets, in my experience, are relatively easy to grow, but they you can't sow the seeds too closely. If they're growing too close, then the roots won't really develop, even though the greens will.
Ah, okay.
So that could be one issue. But even if the root doesn't develop, you can still eat the greens. They're basically the same as Swiss chard.
Okay. So it's still got some value.
Oh yeah, beet greens are very, very, very healthy. Probably healthier than the root is actually.
Really?
Sure, yeah.
Wow. Well, would you say are there a lot of greens on vegetables that we're discarding that could fit into that healthy category?
Um, yes, I would think so. So like for example, in the summertime when the onions have not yet turned yellow and flopped over so that they're
Mhm.
ready to be harvested for curing for the winter, I eat fresh summer onions, and there's no reason why we shouldn't eat the green
The
leaves
tops.
just like we eat the root. Yeah, they're
Okay.
very healthy. They're basically chives, or
Yeah.
scallions. We can also eat carrot tops. I make carrot top, pesto.
Oh,
Um,
I've done that and it's good.
yes, it is good. So there's no reason why we shouldn't eat, more of the plant.
I gotcha. So when it comes to storage, that's another thing because, the tomatoes, when I'm harvesting those things, they're sitting out all over my counter, in the kitchen and whatnot. What's the best way to store vegetables? Because sometimes I always feel like when they've been refrigerated, maybe my refrigerator's too cold. I don't know.
It really depends on the vegetable, which vegetable we're talking about. Some veggies don't really need to go into the refrigerator. Like I wouldn't put tomatoes in the fridge, for example,
Right.
and other types of fruit. But others do quite well in the fridge, especially if they're in a plastic
Like a
bag.
Ziploc or something? Ziploc.
Yeah. And then others, obviously need to be cured so that they can last for many months through the fall and the winter, like onions, winter squash, and those sorts of things.
So on the greens, thinking about things you would harvest that have greens, your chard, if you get lucky and get spinach, but things like that, do you wrap a paper towel? Do you stick a little bit of a paper towel in the bag with them for moisture control? Is that a
I prefer to eat it directly cut from the garden.
well, it's
Rather
a
than even putting it in the fridge, it goes from the garden into the sauté pan.
well, it sounds like with your garden, that's not hard to do. You've
That's right, yeah.
you've got a plethora. There was a woman who, endorsed your book, and she referred to your book as endearingly quirky. What do you think makes it endearing, and what do you think makes it quirky?
Well, that endorsement was from Marion Nestle, who's one of my idols. She's a very, very well-known nutritionist who has spent her entire career talking about and writing about food politics, the ways that corporations and lobbying groups, etc., have an impact on our food environment. So she's really the
Yeah.
expert in that area, and she's one of my idols. I think she called it quirky because I do give a lot of nutrition facts and I give a lot of quirky scientific facts as well. For example, I explain exactly how it is that onions make us cry, why it is that beans make us fart, how it is that beets can make our pee pink. So there's a lot of quirky scientific facts, but hopefully the book is also endearing in that I share a lot of very personal stories about building my farm, my successes, my failures, and my aspirations. So I think she was hopefully pulling from those two things and calling it endearingly quirky.
Well, I laughed when I saw that, and having read the book, I would agree with her because it is there are a lot of books out there about, vegetables and nutrition and things like that, but you have so much detail. I mean, you could really get to know the beet family. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. Yes. And it's because I think we should all get to know the beet family. You
Yes.
know, we're all really good at understanding how other types of food groups are related to one another. So, we know how pasta and bread are related. They're flour and water, right? So they're
Right.
very, very similar. We know how a pork loin is related or not to a chicken leg, right? But
Exactly.
do we know how the brassicas are or are not related to the alliums?
No
Or how
idea.
the quinopods are or are not related to the legumes? And I think we should understand our 8 families of veggies because if we're smarter with regard to our veggies, we're more likely to eat more of them.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And there is no denying, for me personally, I'll just speak for myself, but when I have more vegetables in my diet, I have more energy. I feel like I'm more clear-headed, minded. Lots of things seem to be firing on all cylinders. It really seems
That's
to make a
right.
big difference.
Yes, part of it is that we feel good about ourselves because we know that we're taking care of ourselves and we're eating well. So
Yeah.
there's a psychological element to it. But also, all of these 8 families of plants give us a different array of vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients. These are different families of plants, so they give us different phytonutrients. Those phytonutrients are antioxidants, they're anti-inflammatory. So it makes sense that they're going to promote our health, reduce our risk for illnesses and diseases.
Yeah.
And it's also good for our mind because the same foods that are good for our body are also good for our mind.
Well, before I let you go, everyone's so busy, right? And we're in the season of the year where that's just multiplied times 10. You've got, school starting again, getting into the fall routine and all that. What would
Yes.
be if you had advice for people wanting to, either clean up their diet or maybe they don't want to do anything dramatic. They just want to feel better, have more energy, but have it be attainable without going to a lot of expense or a lot of trouble. What would be the top 5, say 3 to 5 things you would recommend they do?
I would say if there's time and if it's possible locally to get to know one or more small local farms. Go to the farmer's market and meet
Mhm.
a farmer who's selling veggies. Ask him or her, what are your favorite veggies that you have available today and how do you eat them? Because they're local, they're going to be more nutritious, they're going to be more delicious. I would also say, as I mentioned earlier, grow some of your own food,
Yeah.
even if it's just a little bit. Maybe it's some strawberries, which are super easy to grow. Maybe it's a planter with herbs. Maybe it's a whole backyard garden, but I would say, grow some of your own food. Another piece of advice I would say, and this sounds a little technical, minimize saturated fat and maximize fiber. Another way to say that is minimize meat and maximize vegetables. So I'm
Yeah.
not saying you need to become a vegetarian overnight, but I do think that we eat a lot of meat and sometimes the meat, pushes some of our healthy veggies off our plate.
Uh,
I
you
would
know
also say, yeah,
Go ahead.
2 more. I would say, packaged and processed food in the grocery store, it comes with an ingredients list.
Mhm.
Always read the ingredients list. If there are things on that list that you can't pronounce or you can't stock in your own pantry because it's not available, it's an industrial product, I would say try to avoid it. It's ultra processed food. And then finally, I would say that for any of us, if over time, in adulthood, we're struggling in any way with gradual weight gain. Many people do
Mhm.
have
Who
gradual
doesn't, right?
weight gain. To just remember that there's a formula that's pretty straightforward, and that is weight gain means there's more calories coming in than there is calories going out. And so there are two ways to address that gradual weight gain. One is to reduce calories in, the other way is to
Mhm.
reduce calories out. Ideally, you would do both. And so those are some of the types of pointers that I give in Veggie Smarts, and there are lots and lots of others.
Yeah, no, there are. You learn quite a bit about, pardon me, the different vegetable groups and whatnot. And I would say too, with the calorie, I agree with you on that. And vegetables have so far fewer calories
Oh, yeah,
than meat. Personally, I like meat. I like chicken. I like fish. But I have found what would normally be maybe a 6-ounce portion, I can reduce that, cut it in half, and I'm not missing a thing. And in terms of what the nutritional value is I'm getting out of that protein, and yet I'm able to consume more veggies. So I
that's
agree with
right.
you on that.
And the veggies have lots of fiber and
Hmm.
phytonutrients. The meats have none of that. So, we
Yeah.
we really need to eat more fiber. It's good in terms of reducing risk for colon cancer as well.
Yeah. It's just wins all around, right?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Well, Dr. Compton, thank you so much. The book is called Veggie Smarts. I'll include a link to it also on your episode so folks can check it out. And I really appreciate you taking the time. You've been so patient with us because of all the Texas flooding events. We had to
Well, I
postpone
feel
our first
terrible.
interview.
Yes, I feel terrible about what happened to everyone there. The news was just really
Yeah.
jarring and alarming. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Have a wonderful weekend and keep me on the list when your next book comes out.
Oh, I sure will. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.
You too, Michael.
Get social with us. Follow us on Instagram at Goodtaste TV.